So I'm going to hold my hands up here. Akash has attended your Optimum Thinking workshop. He was blown away by it. He told me afterwards straight away that he took things that he can implement right away. I think the words that you used were game changer.
Yeah. He texted me Friday morning and he said, "How was the course yesterday?" I said, "Game changing."
Oh wow, awesome.
Yeah,
thank you.
Hence him saying that we should have you on the podcast.
Yeah.
So for the listeners out there that aren't familiar with you, who is Manmeet Chowdhry?
Well, she's a 36-year-old girl. So I'm basically a human behavior specialist, and I help people remove emotional blocks that are holding them back from, basically acting at their optimum performance in both personal and professional lives.
Awesome.
I do this is, as you said earlier, my bread and butter. I do this full time. I've dedicated my life to it because I see how powerful it is when people are actually implementing these tools to really neutralize any emotional blocks they've got that are just, sometimes they don't even know how much they're holding them back.
Yeah, perfect. What led you down the path of studying human behavior and now eventually obviously making it kind of like, I guess, your life mission and teaching workshops and what got you into it?
So it was about 10 years ago. So basically I've been into personal development for quite a few, since 2005.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was basically all into positive thinking. I tried The Secret. I was talking to Akash's mum earlier. I was, done Tony Robbins. Spent quite a bit of time with, what's his name? From The Secret. I've completely, the name's gone. White hair, glasses, completely forgot his name now.
Do you want to just tell the listeners what the concept of The Secret is?
Yeah, so The Secret, what it puts out there is very much, it's called like the law of attraction is what it's known as. And it's very much about what you think about, you bring about. A lot of the viewers, a lot of the people who came on that program, because it was actually a DVD first, which I've
actually watched it. I haven't read the book, but I've watched the DVD. I haven't read the book.
So do you know who the gentleman is I'm talking about?
I know who you mean. Yeah.
And you can't remember the name either?
You can't have left that much of an impact.
Yeah. So basically, but all of them were filmed for hours and hours and hours. And, it was cut to really what kind of sells. But what I go through is a little bit about what the secret behind the secret is and how do you really attract things, into your life. And so I was all into this, and it was all about to do with positive thinking, and I was there doing that, and negative things were still kind of happening in my life. And I didn't know why. So it led me down a path of, I was probably, if I'd gone to the doctors, I probably would have been diagnosed as having depression, but I didn't really go and, just kind of sat with that.
Yep.
And it came to a point where I really questioned why I was alive. So, really hit real rock bottom. And then from there on, my friend, I'll tell you the full story. A friend of mine was actually in South Africa who'd been to see John Demartini. And he's the original friend of mine who introduced me to like The Secret and these kind of things. So he rang me, and I remember I'd come back from India and had a trip in India, and I was getting over a jet lag, which was literally the next day. And he said, "What are you doing? You need to go and see this guy called Dr. John Demartini speaking." And I said to him, "Listen, I'm busy because I'm getting over my jet lag. I'm done with all this positive thinking stuff, and I don't have time for it. It doesn't work, and I'm not interested." And he said to me, "No, Mummy, you've got to go. Remember that guy that I really hated?" So he worked with somebody that he really hated at the time. And I said, "Yep." And he said, "Well, you know what I was going to do." And he'd actually got a gun and was really ready to kill him.
Oh.
And in South Africa, you can do that. Yeah. And, you get away with things like that, as we know. So just casually, I said, "Yeah, have you done it yet?" Like literally with no emotion. And he said to me, "No." And this is what got me. He said, "I have nothing but love and gratitude for this man." Wow. And I thought, okay, maybe there's something about forgiveness here. And then he said, "But I hope that my kids have his traits." And when he said that, my first question was, "What have you been smoking?"
I was just about to ask the same thing.
And he said, "No, seriously, nothing." He goes, "This is the power of what I'm asking you to go and just hear Dr. John Demartini speak. You know where I was in terms of my resentment towards this man. And what I'm saying to you now has been an impact of what this man talks about, Dr. Demartini." So in the end, I did go, and I sat there with about 300 other people, and he opened his talk that evening with one line, and it was very much where I was. So I felt like out of 300 people, he was talking to me, and he just said, raise your hand if you're into positive thinking. And everybody had their hands up, although I was sitting back with my arms crossed, because I was like, what is this man going to tell me I don't already know? And he said, and how many of you still have negative thoughts? So I unfolded my arms, I sat back and I listened, and everything just made sense that day for me. It was all about the fact that this wasn't just a hype kind of seminar. It wasn't one of the things that was trying to sell you the whole positive thinking industry. And it just made sense because it was quite scientific based. And so it's based, the work that I do is based on universal laws. And, he's done over 46 years of research, which has been all cross-disciplinary in all the ologies you can think of. And he's put together a methodology that by far is the quickest way I can see that helps people get out of infatuation and get out of resentment very quickly and get back into action. So I decided at that time I was going to do a signature program. By the time I attended this program, I had a bit of a physical challenge and I wasn't able to walk. I'd spent a good few months on crutches. And when I got to his course, he talks about mind-body connection. So basically my knee, I couldn't bend it and I couldn't stand it up, I couldn't straighten it. And it was my left side. And when I said to him, I said, John, you talk about mind-body connection. What do you think this is? And he said, what side is it on? And I said, it's the left side, which he typically says is feedback for any resentment you've got towards a female or family member or family issues. And right side, any feedback issues are to do with male and business. So he said, these were his exact words. He said, which female authority are you giving into and can't stand up to? And I said, well, that's my mum. And he said, right, so this weekend you're doing the program, work on your mom. If something happens, we don't know your mind-body connection. And if something shifts, great. If it doesn't, at least you've got rid of some resentment you had. And I walked out of that course at the end of 2 days without crutches, and I could walk again, which I hadn't done for months.
Wow.
So, so that at that point, I made a decision that this is what I was going to do. That was back in 2008. But I'm a firm believer. Don't try and help other people sort out their stuff until you sorted out your own.
If only other people would listen to that mantra first.
So I spent 4 years after that just working on myself, my own personal issues that I had been going through, the very things that, I had understood were getting me down. And also the things that, because the moment we're kind of thinking the things are getting us down, we've got a nightmare about what's going on, and simultaneously we're creating a fantasy of how life should be. So getting that very life off the pedestal as well was quite key to my recovery of things and understanding it. And then I went on to leave work in 2015 to do this full time, because after that I'd done my certification and all the kind of studies and started working with clients, and then made the transition.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's a bit of a long introduction as to why I do it, but
that's what we're doing sales, right? Before.
Yeah. So in the whole thing, I've been doing sales since I was 16, and I basically, I was pretty much number one saleswoman in all my roles. And when this kind of episode happened of when everything was on a downer for me, my sales took a nosedive dip. And it had nothing to do with the fact that I didn't know how to sell. So that was when I made the link between emotional management and how it has an effect on your performance, especially in sales. But that just meant that it has an effect on performance in professional life overall.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Talk us through the difference between positive and optimum thinking.
So positive thinking, like the industry, positive thinking, it's $1 trillion industry. Okay?
And just as the background, optimum thinking is Manmeet's company name.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Just so people know.
So it is a movement, that's starting to get recognized there. It's myself and my business partner, Helen Kemp, in Australia. She actually founded Optimum Thinking, and we partnered up and brought it to the UK.
Yeah.
And, it was kind of like this synergy we had, because I understood what balanced thinking was. I didn't like that name. I didn't like realistic thinking. And then when Helen and I kind of got together and she told me what Optimum Thinking was her company, and I was like, that resonates. So
perfect.
So the difference really is that positive thinking is really about, they tell you, whatever negative thing you're kind of going through, look at all the positives and make it a positive. So it's one extreme or the other. And obviously if something, and they don't typically say, if it's something's positive, look for the negatives. They just try and get you to keep on looking at only the positives and keeping in that high. Whereas optimum thinking is about taking the very thing that you perceive to be negative and asking some quality questions to see how it was of value to you at that time. So it's about stacking up, how was it a benefit to you at the time that very thing happened, or the very person you experienced, and only bringing it into optimum where you see it being neither good or bad, but it was just of service to you at the time and helping you fulfill.
Can you give the listeners an example?
Yeah, I was about to ask for an example. That'd be perfect.
You see.
Oh, I see lots of examples.
Or maybe one you can relate.
Could we go one step further? Akash, you've attended the workshop.
Yes.
Does this apply to you?
Yeah, in a lot of senses.
Did you have an epiphany with
this? The way she did it is, you ask yourself, where has someone done something bad to you, or where have you done something bad to them, and then think about the exact moment. So, you're almost freezing the film roll of that exact moment, and think about how what you did or what happened to you served you or them, right? In a benefit way, or what lesson you learned in that exact moment in time.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you experience something yourself, that someone's done something in your perception, something negative to you, you'll typically hold a fear around that happening again to you. Yeah. So all fear is an assumption that something in the future is going to cause you more pain than pleasure, more drawback than benefit, more negative than positive. Yeah. And that is normally associated with something you've experienced in the past that you've obviously left that's not neutralized. Because anytime we have something that we attach a meaning that's either positive or negative, it's stored in our memory, which actually creates a memory. The moment it's neutralized, there's no memory there of the perception that we have, because you obviously see both sides to it.
So just as an example, just for listeners, it could be somebody cheated on you in a relationship. That's probably the most obvious one, right? You're probably going to have that a lot. And then
it's also one that I kind of went through, and let's just take the labels off it. I these guys had a laugh when I said it, but I say when my ex-partner decided to outsource some parts of our relationship.
Okay, I like the way you worded that. Yeah.
Well, the only way I can do that, Adam, is because I've worked on it. So there was this whole the moment you reframe something and use different words, it almost takes you out of that victim mentality.
Yeah, I like that.
But it could be that.
Are you also doing it because you want to remove the negative emotion around it?
No, I couldn't do that until I actually had removed it.
Okay.
And it wasn't to remove the if you take somebody who's gone through something that they perceive as so negative and you try and tell them it was a good thing, watch the resistance happen.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So it's not to say that when that happens, there aren't any drawbacks or there's nothing negative. There is. But the moment you see they had equal positives and it was neither good or bad, it was just of service to you at the time, you're going to be less resistant to actually finding what the other side is. And the analogy I like to use is if we look at the one that probably your viewers can relate to is a glass, right? So when it's half full with water, it's also half empty at the same time.
Yeah.
The kind of analogy that people go, are you a glass half full or half empty person? So when I get that asked now, I'm both half full and half empty at the same time.
Okay.
Because you're not going to have one without the other. But what happens is we're very conscious of the downsides, and we're unconscious of the other side. But the moment we start asking, like Akash said, how was it a benefit to you at that time?
Yeah.
So, because it's always going to be of value to you at the time you've actually experienced something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes a difference. And when Akash was saying, when you take something you've done negative to someone, that's known as stored as guilt. Because when you perceive you've done something negative to someone and it hasn't served them, what happens, Adam, is this one actually has a direct effect on people's finances. Because the moment you feel like you've caused someone more pain in the past than pleasure, more negative over positive, more drawback over benefit, these are the opposites, you will overcompensate for it in the present, not feeling worthy of receiving. So the moment you get any money in, and this will be for your business owners or, even just generally working, you'll start giving it out. You'll either start paying for friends' meals, charity, all this kind of stuff. Alternatively,
is there a way of like almost compensating?
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
So you'll overcompensate for it now because you think you're not worthy of receiving it.
Mhm.
So you either don't bring it in at all, or if you do bring it in, then you just want to get rid of it because you feel like, no, I've done that negative things to someone in the past. So I've had quite a few cases where I've worked with business owners, and the moment we go in and dissolve guilt, I mean, I had this one particular one. He was a functional nutritionist.
Mhm.
And when we worked with him, he was holding on to some guilt about letting go of a staff member. And the moment we actually helped him dissolve that and see how he served that staff member by letting them go, the next day his income on online sales went up from £1,500 to £11,000. Just the next day, which is more he's done in three years of running his business.
Wow.
And that was just because he felt worthy of receiving again. So there was a whole block there before that had happened.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's pretty powerful, isn't it?
Yeah, the link between the mindset and sales and
absolutely
business function overall, right?
Yeah, and it can have an effect on any area, but it's just the whole thing about feeling worthy of receiving. And then also with fear, the moment you know that anything you're going to experience has both sides, it's going to have equal benefits and drawbacks, then what happens to fear as you move forward? You know you're going to get both sides. You just move forward with exactly what you're inspired.
So is this
to
the
do.
concept of bringing it back to balance? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, so it's never to make a positive thing negative or a negative thing positive. Okay. It's about seeing that, like, for example, when your clients work with you, they've got a goal and they know it's going to be equally pleasurable as it is painful.
Yeah, of course.
And there's going to be benefits and drawbacks of they've got to eat well, they've got to do all the workouts, etc. But the pleasure there is also the fact that they're going to get a result.
That's quite a good analogy, isn't it?
Yeah,
like
playing well to our clients. Yeah,
it does. Yeah, perfect. Definitely.
And on that same note, is it when you were talking about?
Sorry, that's Alexa in the background. Akash and his parents bought me one of the Sonos units for my apartment when I moved in, and every so often, if I say a word,
it goes off. Yeah.
Just ignore that.
What I was saying is this the concept of if things are going really well for you, for example, say you're having a really good day of sales, for example, not to get carried away and bring it back to balance. Think about what the downsides are or the drawbacks.
Absolutely.
And vice versa as well.
Yes, exactly. So if you've had like a bad day in your perception at work, you asking yourself, what we call building questions, right? Prior building questions to bring you back into balance. Mm-hmm. And also, if you think you've done an awesome job, is ask yourself, who did I not serve? Where did I not do what was expected? To humble yourself, because if you don't humble yourself, you'll be humbled on the outside. I mean, I'm sure you may have gone through this. Like, I'm single, so I have my parents serving me at home doing all this. But the moment I think I've done a great job at work, I'll come out of my office and, they'll bring me down. So they'll bring me back into balance to let me know what I didn't do for them. What, I spent this much time doing this and I haven't done this for them. But the moment I actually ask myself to bring myself back into balance, those questions, I'm just received with an open heart, and I receive them with an open heart. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. I did some research, obviously, on you and on your website and whatnot, but I didn't want to read too much into it because this podcast has actually panned out perfectly for this. Akash knows everything, well, not everything, but he's attended your workshop. So I didn't want to read too much into it. So this is actually conversational between you and I.
Sure.
So explain to me, and then by default the listeners, what the HILPs are. So Akash has written the question of, and the importance of establishing HILPs.
Has he been throwing that word around?
I haven't actually mentioned it.
And I purposely haven't. Yeah, I haven't looked into it so that you're talking to me basically. So this is conversational. So.
I knew we were having this chat, so I thought I wasn't going to tell him too much about it. I thought let him hear it from yourself, right? But
yeah.
So this word HILPs all weekend with my parents.
Okay.
I even used it. I went to dinner with Matt on Friday.
Uh-huh.
I was using it with him as well. I made him do a HILP test in front of me straight
brilliant.
after the course.
Awesome.
But I'll let you explain what it means.
So HILPs originates from basically ancient Greeks.
Okay.
And it's based on a study called axiology. What axiology is a study of values and worth. Mm-hmm. And what it does is it tells you, once you understand what your what they call values are, you basically have something called your telos, which we now know as purpose or mission, for example. Okay, so as we know that as purpose and mission, that's what the ancient Greeks call telos, which is about actually seeing what is your meaning and purpose in life.
Yep.
And how do we determine that? So how we determine that is basically something called a value determination process, which I'd like to acknowledge Dr. John Demartini for that. He's got a process. So he calls it values. And in optimum thinking, we call it HILPs. And that's just because we like to get people not so confused by using the words values. Because when you think of values, I'm sure you'd agree, and you might use words like honesty, integrity.
Yeah, straight away I'm thinking like my morals and values and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. So what HILPs are, they're actually not it's not like a proper word. We've just made it up. And it stands for hierarchy of individual life priorities.
Okay.
So immediately, if I said to you, what are your priorities in life, you're going to have a different answer to if I said, what are your values?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So if I said to you, what are your priorities? What would you say your top 3 priorities in life are?
For me right now, it would be probably body composition, like looking good, which, aesthetics, I guess. It would be business and I guess, making money.
Yep.
And then it would be close friends and family would be.
Cool. Excellent. So then you can see the difference between if I just said what your values were.
Of course, yeah, then it would be, honesty and, all that sort of stuff.
Exactly. So when we look at, so I'm going to explain this to you and your viewers, because this is what I find is this is the most important study, but it's the least studied. Mm-hmm. So this study of axiology. And when you understand this, you'll understand yourself and also other people. So we call it optimum thinking. We call it HILPs, but we also call it master key to understanding yourself. So basically, everybody operates on a hierarchy of individual life priorities at a subconscious level. Mm-hmm. And it's from what's most important right down to what's least important. So if I support you in your highest priorities, I'm going to have, a very different side of Adam that I see. So you just said, your body composition, your business, creating wealth, and also your friends. So if I came and I saw you and I didn't know who you were, and I just said, well, your body's obviously not that great looking, and your business really isn't doing well.
So it's funny you say this, because when he met one of our coaches, Kunal,
the
first time he ever met Kunal, when Kunal went down to where he lives in Crawley,
mm-hmm.
I think the first thing Kunal said to him was, you look way more jacked than in pictures. And it was probably the first thing Adam told me that he said.
Right.
He was like, as soon as he said that, I was on board with him.
Yeah, no, this is a nice guy. What's it, sorry?
Did you say that you were on board with him?
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. Great, that's great.
So
thanks, Akash, because you just made it really easy for me to explain that. Because the moment you said you're on board with him, mm-hmm. it's because he came in and supported your highest priorities.
Interesting.
Okay.
He read you like a book.
Yeah. So the moment I turn around and say, if Kunal had actually come in and said, man, you look like not as good in your pictures, or, anything like challenging your highest priorities, right? Mm-hmm. Or really, like if I came in and I said, your business is like really rubbish, what do you guys think you're actually doing? And I almost challenged you in that. You'll shut down, you won't want to talk to me, and I'll see a very different side to you. So you're starting to understand why I'm calling this the master key, okay? Because this master key is where you make your emotions from. Because would you agree that depending on how I show up and support or challenge your priorities, you're going to make different emotions?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. If Kunal had opened with the example that you just gave.
Yeah.
told him to go back.
I'd have told him to get back on the train, back into London.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. And it's a very different side that you see to someone the moment you're challenged in your highest priorities. The other thing is you make your decisions based on this. So if I said to you, you have a choice of hanging out with your mates, or you have a choice of meeting a client who potentially is going to be a new client for you, and is worth X amount, is going to build your business, which one are you going to go with?
Oh, that's a tough one. It depends on the bottom line of the money, but it should be friends, but
yes, great. So Adam's great at this.
Yeah,
like the language he's using will just bring us into the next bit. Did you want to say something?
No. You gave some good examples on this about how you attended some weddings. Was it recently you had some weddings, cousins' weddings you didn't go to?
Yeah,
because of the HILP.
Absolutely. So you said it's tough, and that's because I'm now asking you to choose between 1, 2, and 3 in your priorities.
Yeah.
However, when you said it should be friends, right? When you use the word should, you're basically taking somebody else's priorities, thinking you should live by that. But if you ask true Adam, what would you want to do, not what you should do, you will typically go with what's most important to you, which is going to be that I want to build my business, and this client, me getting this client on, is going to be another step to building my business. So you're going to make your decisions based on it. There's a great quote by Roy Disney. He says, when you know your values, decision making becomes easier. So as I said, I'm just using priorities, but when we think of what I'm talking about in terms of values and what John Demartini says is values, that's what we're talking about. It's when you know what your hierarchy of priorities are, you'll know when you make your decisions and why you make them, and where you make your emotions from and why you make your emotions as well. You also make your judgments based on it. So if you see someone, especially in the line of work you and Akash do, that's eating a load of crap, not working out, you're gonna go like, oh my God, what is this person doing? They should be doing this, and you'll should all over them because your priorities are different to theirs. And
I'll give you an example of that, and this one may lose us a couple of listeners, but I'm all for being transparent. I can see Akash knows sort of where I'm going with this, and it's really bad, but I can't help it. In that, like, I've been on dates in the past where somebody hasn't been in great shape, which is fine. I can overlook that. And then we've gone to like order a drink, and they're like, I'll have a full sugar Coke, and I'm thinking it's not in line with my values. And like Akash will text me later on, how'd it go? She ordered Coke, not Coke Zero. And I know it's so bad, but
okay. So here's a little eye opener for you, Adam. We seek that supports our priorities and values, but we attract that what challenges it in order for us to grow.
Interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But if the thing
is this the kebab and chips goal?
That's one of them.
That's one of them. But the very thing you see that you also are infatuated with, because if you don't see the downsides of being healthy, and typically I've worked with some personal trainers whose kids, they're the opposite, right? They're not into their health, because our kids will always express what we repress. And we're doing the same with being, if we don't have kids ourselves, we're doing it for our parents. Yep. But the very thing that my mom and dad aren't really into their health, but my brother is very much into his health. He's good at working out and eating really well. And there was a time where I was also like that, and now I'm with RNT. I'm getting back there. So it really does make a difference when you really see how is somebody supporting or challenging your priorities. Because it was Aristotle said, if you see more similarities than differences, you're infatuated. So even when you go on your date, if you start thinking there are more similarities than differences, most people, it's not funny. They'll go, they've got 2 eyes, they've got a nose, and, they're just like me. And then suddenly the very thing that they were infatuated with, they see the other side. Because the other person's just going to let you know they've got the other side. So the more you infatuate with them, the more they're going to show the other side. But if you see that as a downside, and, even if you asked these people that you go on dates with, how does it help you? How does it help you in your priorities when they order a Coke?
Yeah.
And it's not about making them wrong for it. They're just living by what's important to them. And sometimes it's just about, that could be an opportunity for you to educate if that's really important.
I think Adam will find this interesting. Talk about the concept of infatuation and getting rid of it. So if you're infatuated by someone, and moving on from that process. Yeah. So,
there's a element, of infatuation you do need sometimes, right? And you're not ever going to get rid of it, because we, as you said earlier, Adam, we will make judgments, but, you said it's wrong of me, I shouldn't really judge. We are absolutely meant to judge. And we're going to keep judging, until the day we die. The moment we don't judge, that's when we're pretty much dead.
Okay.
It's judgment that allows us to ask the right questions, and then the more judgments we kind of neutralize is what brings us, to the next level for the next challenge. So when we see something, can we see more positives than negatives? We'll tend to infatuate. Mm-hmm. And the very thing that we infatuate with is the thing that we fear losing. Because there are only two kind of main fears. It's the fear of losing what we infatuate with, or it's the fear of gaining what we actually resent. Because we don't want the thing that we're resenting or feeling like is painful, and we don't want to lose the thing that we think is pleasurable and, you know, beneficial to us.
Yeah.
So the moment we see something as infatuated, like, so I go on dates, and if I like someone, I'll start, by the time I've left the date and got home, I'll go, what are the downsides to this guy if I really like him? And I will go as deep as going, his teeth were a bit crooked, just so that I can take the person off the pedestal.
Okay.
Because, and then what happens is, the more, and I've done it the opposite way when I haven't done that, and then I won't hear from them because I'm so infatuated with them, right? And I'm going, when they're going to text.
Yeah.
You know, on the other side, the moment I actually see them for who they are and that they've got both sides, I'm not infatuated. In that moment, I'm able to create a kind of, you know, a meaningful relationship, not one that is more just one-sided in my perception. Because most people get married when they're infatuated, and then after the marriage, they go, that's not the person I knew. And you go, no, there is exactly the same person you knew. You were just blind to the downsides and were just looking at the upsides.
Right. It's some pretty cool stuff, isn't it?
And as a good segue, you know, you mentioned about when two partners, so they should run their HILP tests together, and then as a way of improving their relationship, and this could be in any aspect of relationship, not just romantic. Talk about how you can understand each other better by matching HILPs together and creating patterns, or, you know. Yeah,
absolutely. So like when you understand, especially business partners, I like to say even in teams. So I used to manage a whole team of salespeople. So when you understand, so when I said, you know, everybody's got that list of priorities from what's most important right down to what's least important. Well, what is most important in your list is where you're going to be inspired from within. Okay. And anything that's lower in your priorities, you're going to need outside motivation to do. So anything that's not linked to the highest priorities, you're going to kind of use words like, I have to, I should do that. You know, I ought to do this. I need to do this. You'll use language like that because you know it's lower on your priorities. Now, I'm sure both of you guys would say the work that you do, you'd use words like, I love doing what I'm doing. You know, I'm choosing to do it. And these are all the kind of words, and I want to do it. Those words are all you living by your higher priorities. So when you're in a partnership, whether it be with a, you know, business partner or, you know, a romantic relationship, understanding the other person's HILPs will allow you to have a meaningful relationship. Because anytime you're basically acting what we call like, you know, an overdog, that's where you're thinking your HILPs are better than theirs. So you will should on your partner. So if with this lady, like, you know, you had a relationship, you'd be like, you should be eating healthy. Yeah. Or you should not be having that Diet Coke or Coke Zero or whatever it is. And in that moment, you're playing the overdog position because you're thinking your priorities are more important than hers. And you'll try and change her to be more like you. Yeah. And it's the same in the business relationship, right? The other side is if you're playing what we call underdog, you will sacrifice in your perception your HILPs, and you'll be in a careful relationship because you'll be like, oh, no, my priorities aren't important. It's all about you. What should we do? Where should we go? And let the decisions be made by the overdog. But what we call a caring relationship is if I let you know how can I fulfill your priorities in exchange of fulfilling mine, well, then we're in a caring relationship. So, I mean, I give the simple analogy, like, you know, if we go, well, one of them saying I want to go Chinese, one of them saying I want to go, you know, Indian. And if you're going, well, no, it's Chinese or it's nothing, you're in overdog. If you're in, you know, underdog, you're like, well, no, we can just do Indian today. No, so we'll do Chinese because it's all about you and we'll go wherever you want to go. And then if it's a caring, it'll be like, let's go Chinese tonight, we'll go Indian tomorrow. Yes. So it's a very different type of relationship because the bottom line of any human being is they want to be loved and appreciated for who they are. And who they are is an expression of their HILPs, so their priorities. That's all they want to be loved for doing. Nobody wants to be told they should be doing this. They just want to live by what's most important to them. Does that answer your question?
What was the radio station you called it?
It's called WIIFM. Have you heard of it, Adam? No. So they've got some great songs on there. It's called What's in It for Me.
Okay.
That's the radio station. So everybody's operating on that. And what they're trying to do is, if I can see whatever you're offering me fulfills my priorities, then I'm there. So like, you guys asked me to do this podcast, and it's very aligned with my HILPs. It's about reaching people. It's about sharing the message, and I'm here. I'm doing it. I'm taking time out. It's aligned. You get what you want because you want a podcast, and I get to share my message. So we're now in a caring relationship, allowing both of our HILPs to be met.
Okay.
Speaking of making your HILPs a higher priority, what advice would you give to say clients or listeners or anyone who's struggling with bringing their HILPs up, of bringing their health and fitness HILPs up?
Yeah, I was about to ask this. Can you manipulate your values? And this isn't that I manipulate a girl into drinking Coke Zero. This is from the client perspective. If
absolutely.
Health and fitness.
Well, the first thing is, what they need to do is find out where health is on their priorities. Mm-hmm. And once they find that out, then basically they see what their top 3 priorities are, and you link how does actually getting healthy help them in their highest HILPs. But as I said to Akash, when he came to do my course, and I was great at one time at working out and eating really healthy. That I had no problem with. But when I look at it as a whole of losing weight, for me, I'm sure you agree, even going to sleep, is actually a huge part of losing weight. Mm-hmm. But I could not go to sleep before like 1, 2 o'clock. I'd carry on working because I was living by my top HILPs, which is building my business and coaching and teaching. And at the time, I used to do a lot more consults internationally, but I would work on their timing. So I'd be like US timing.
Okay.
And then there was no way I was going to go to sleep really early. But what I did was I took how does going to sleep early, and you can do this with any area. So if any of your listeners are either struggling with diet, keeping to their diet, or they're struggling with actually, going to the gym. Mm-hmm. So either activity that you guys have told them to do, any of those activities they're finding hard to do, they want to ask themselves, how does that very thing help me? So for me, it was, how does going to sleep early help me in fulfilling my highest priority of coaching and teaching? And I keep answering that question until there's a physical shift in, and only I can tell that, right? And only your viewers can tell that. When they feel that shift of, damn, I'm inspired to go and sleep early now. And I literally, in my diary, I had time. I had I had an alarm go off to go bedtime. Yeah. So, that then helped me to go, okay, now this is about, if I don't sleep early, so the links I'd made was like, it helps me be a lot more refreshed for my clients. I'm a lot more present in their sessions. I'm able to create more shifts, etc. for them. All these kind of things until I had about 50, and then every day I would add about 3 to 5 a day just to keep going. Because what happens in that instance is that you've basically reprogrammed your neural pathways of an association you had. Mm-hmm. So you've brought it up higher in your priorities because you've just linked that very thing. So that very thing I needed motivation for, I was now inspired to do. Great. So remember I said anything that's low in your priorities, you'll need outside motivation. So other personal trainers who I've worked with their clients, they'll say they do an amazing job in the gym. They do a great job when I'm training them. But the minute they walk out the door, they're not eating well. Yeah. So something like that, we would just literally link eating healthy to the HILPs. And now they're more inspired and they don't need the personal trainer to motivate them.
Great.
So I hope that's of value to your...
Yeah, no, that's perfect.
I mean, the people listening, if they're struggling, they can just kind of ask themselves, what's their main priority, and how will getting leaner, stronger, whatever their goal is, help that main priority. So if their main priority is, say, family, for example, it could be,
life extension.
Sorry,
life extension.
Yeah, exactly. Life extension, or more energy with their kids.
Yeah, it's whatever a priority. I mean, I'll give you an example. My dad is 87 years old. And when you see him, you will immediately take off 15, 20 years off his life and think he was much younger. Wow. And back when I was very young, I was a high priority for him. So I was born when he was like 50. And, when I was younger, I said to him, I want you to be here when I get married. And I said, in order for that to happen, we need to go for a walk every day. And, let's start together and I'll do it with you. So I literally started, I think I must have been at least 12 or 13. And we did it every day. And within a few months, I stopped. But till this day, he does not go for a walk. Wow. And he walks Monday to Friday. And then Saturday, Sunday, he has his days off. But I tell you, no matter what happens, 6:30 or 5 o'clock, like he's out that door doing his, walk. And if it's raining outside, it's such a funny scene. In our living room, we've got a long enough living room, and he'll walk up and down. And the first time I saw him do it, I said, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "I'm just reaching Burnt Oak now," which is near Edgware, right? He goes, "I'm just reaching Burnt Oak and I'm on my way back." And I was like, "Oh my God, you're actually walking inside."
That's awesome.
But that's the power of linking something, because it wasn't about him being healthy, walking or anything. It was about him being around for his daughter to get married. So the moment you link something like that to someone that's something that's very important to someone, you get them inspired to want to do it.
Perfect. What are your thoughts on fulfillment?
So let me explain why I asked this question, and it was because I sent Manmeet my quarterly insights article, and I was talking about what. Sorry,
you just broke up for a second. Just repeat that, sorry.
So I sent Manmeet my quarterly insights article.
Okay.
And in that, I talked about how I was battling for an outlet, and I always speak to you about this. I need an outlet. I don't feel like, while I love what I do, I don't have that fulfillment that I should be getting, or that satisfaction I should be getting. And one of the things Manmeet talked about straight away was how if you're living by your HILPs and you're living by what you enjoy, you're already in that place. You just need to recognize it.
Yeah.
And as soon as she said that, something clicked, because we've talked about, maybe I need to buy something materialistic, and none of that stuff ever does it.
It doesn't appeal to you. Yeah,
it doesn't do it for me. Even if I buy something expensive, I don't get excited by it. But when I realized that, it kind of clicked that what I'm trying to chase is already there. Like, I'm already doing it. And as soon as that, I kind of understood that, it's been like a weight off my shoulders. Like, I don't need to find something, because I already enjoy what I do, right? I love it already. So there's no need for me to have something separate, which is what I talked about in the article, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, so it was like, and just notice Akash's language when he was talking before is like, I should be fulfilled if I do something else. And the moment we don't think we're fulfilled is when we're comparing ourselves to someone else. And we think we should be experiencing it the way that person
Do you think part of that is because I'm always saying to you, what motivates you? Because I'm materialistic, right? So I'm materialistic, so I like buying, the cars, the trainers, and this and that. And I'm always questioning you on. I like, why are you working so hard? Like, what is your end goal?
Yeah. So we spoke about this on New Year's Eve. We were like, it was like way past midnight, and we were in the kitchen, and he was talking about exactly that. He was saying, what drives you? And I'm just sitting there like, I don't know. Like, I'll just keep working and working and working, and I won't know what I'm doing it for. But maybe it's just the fact that I just love that, and that is me just living it.
Yeah, and it'll be you at that time.
Like right now, for the last, say, year and a half, 2 years, that's been my thing, right?
Yeah. Fulfillment, the actual definition of fulfillment is filling full the mind.
Okay.
So the moment you're living by your HILPs, you are already living a fulfilled life, because anything that's highest on our HILPs, we're going to endure both pain and pleasure in pursuit of it. And that's really what fulfillment is. You're living a fulfilled life. You're not living a happy life, because that's a one-sided perception. Whereas if you're looking at fulfillment itself, it's always going to be when you're living by your HILPs. But we just judge ourselves, compared to other people, thinking it should be something different. I share this with Akash and the guys on the workshop, is that Rose Kennedy, her fulfillment came from raising a family. And she had her mission was raise a family of, world leaders, which she did. Now, that's why when I encourage people to look at, what is their vision, what do they want to dedicate their life to, is I say, take all the limits off. Don't perceive that what it is that you're thinking you want to do is either too small, that you're judging yourself by somebody else's priorities, because that's what she did. She raised a family of world leaders. I've had people that have worked with me that, when we do their HILPs, their highest HILP is being a mum. Yet they're going, oh no, but I should be doing something else. That's not enough. But, I, for example, my mum's a housewife now, but I let her know the impact she's having on thousands of people because of the fact that she's taking care of my cooking and all the rest of it. That's her, but she's got a place to play in my vision and mission. And that's exactly what hers is, too. Mind you, she's got another vision since she's been at my workshops now. But yeah, but yeah. So you're living a fulfilled life the moment you're living by your HILPs, and that's why it's so key when people come to me and they go, I don't know what my vision and mission is. I don't know what motivates me. I don't know what I'm inspired by. The moment we just look at their HILPs and they just see that actually I'm really inspired by what I'm doing and what I'm spending my time, energy, money. There's about 10 questions that we ask, to find out your HILPs. It's like, what do you spend your time on?
I'll do it with him tomorrow. He's coming down tomorrow, so I'll do it with him. I'll run it through.
If any of your viewers want it, I'm happy to send you an email so you can forward it on to them, and you can take them through that too.
Perfect.
I mean, and leading on to that, so I also, Adam was saying, like, getting burnt out and always tired or run down. And then, when I went away to Sicily and I felt so much better. Mm-hmm. And then when I was thinking about it the weekend that just passed just after the course, I think a lot of the reason for the burnout and the tiredness was just doing too much of the stuff that I didn't enjoy.
Yeah.
So like, it was all the menial stuff. And it was when I went away to Sicily.
Can you give us examples?
Okay. So things like doing too much of the admin stuff, too much of the finances and, the VAT, all that VAT returns, things that just drain you. Mm. And it was when I went to Sicily, I just naturally find myself opening my notepad, writing away, strategizing on business. And I just found that I was in flow state when I was doing that, just writing plans out, and I'll go with my laptop and I write stuff out. It wasn't forced. It was just me in that kind of flow state that we were talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
I felt recharged by it, by doing that, only that. I made a conscious effort not to do any of the stuff that I just didn't want to do.
Don't inspire you. Yeah, absolutely. You want to find the very things that you, if any of your viewers are in business themselves, the very things that they're not inspired to do, they can do one of two things. If they're in a position, hire someone who has it higher up on their HILPs, so they're inspired. They've basically delegated to someone who's inspired to do it.
Yep.
And if they're not in a position to hire someone, is look at linking that very thing. So, for example, if I, linked your accounts and doing all the finances and all that to your hierarchy of priorities, you'd be inspired to do it.
Yeah.
But anybody that's in a position, I'm saying, for everything that you don't like, there's somebody else that likes it. Mm-hmm. So you want to delegate it to the other people who are inspired to do that. And then as Kakash said and use the right words, is he was in flow. You will feel like you're living your true north and you're in flow when you're living by your HILPs. Nobody needs to remind you to do the very things that, are highest on your HILPs.
It's funny because a couple of days ago, I had, for the first time in a while, I had one of those days, and it was she was sorting out all of our logo design and speaking to people about getting on our podcast and all that. I really struggle with writing and content production. But going back and forth with our designer during the day, trying to finalize this logo, talking about web copy, and getting our sales page done. I said to Emma afterwards, that's the first day in a long time where I felt super pumped afterwards. So maybe my stuff's more creative.
Yes.
Yeah. So for the listeners, my 3 HILPs came out as number 1 was building business, number 2 was transforming client lives, and number 3 was family and friends.
But your building a business was writing.
Writing. Yeah, came from writing. Yeah. Mainly. Writing,
so although
marketing,
the building, although it was building the business, we went really deep into looking at what is it that he specifically does in building the business that he enjoys the most, and it came out as writing content and blogs and
strategy.
A lot of
writing stuff.
Yeah,
which is why I spend my most creative energy on in the morning. So the first thing, I wake up and within 15 minutes I start working, and the first 2.5 hours of the day, 6 to 8:30, will be spent on writing.
Yeah,
nothing else. Before anything else happens in the day, that's what I'll be doing. Yeah,
and you can see that somebody that's got a priority on building client base will get to their emails first.
Yeah,
when they wake up in the morning.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's why even within the business, if you look at what is it, that's why I encourage people when we ask the questions like, what do you spend your time on, energy on? If you're spending time and energy on doing emails, what are you using emails for? Right? Mine typically will be, I'll go through my emails and I'll typically first go to anybody that's got a session booked in, because I want to know what I'm doing with my coaching.
So your number
schedule.
1 would be coaching. So people who wake up and check their client emails, their number 1 priority is coaching.
No, the ones who check the emails depends on what emails. Okay, so I can even tell you, I'll have emails there from booking new appointments. Mine will be all different things, right? And there'll be some from my business partner and things like that. The first emails I'll check is I know which coaching clients I've got booked in that
Mine's
day.
Completely the opposite.
Yeah, yours is writing. because yours is about, even though you're building the business, it's a very different part of the business you want to build.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Interesting.
Interesting. Yeah.
Let's go through the law of duality.
Okay.
Talk us through it.
He doesn't have a clue what it is.
Akash sent me the questions, and I'm just thinking, I just ask this, and you go, "Oh, the law of duality is."
Okay. So the law of duality.
Is this one we've already covered? Where you bring person down?
Yeah, I'll explain it in a different way, so people, because people like to hear the same thing in 3 different ways. So the law of duality is one of the key universal laws, right? So let me just explain what universal laws really are, and it's basically man's best attempt to describe how does the universe work through thousands of years of observation. So it goes back to the likes of Einstein, Emerson, Plato. All these people have tried to describe how does the actual universe work. So through lots and lots of research, you can find law of duality is present whether you see it or not. So law of duality is, you've heard of the saying, there's only one coin, but there's 2 sides to it.
Yep.
Okay. If I give you more of a visual analogy, is that if I gave you a magnet and I said to you, give me back only half of it, what would you do?
Give you back only half the magnet.
Yeah.
You'd attempt to snap it.
Yeah, you'd probably try and cut it in half.
Yeah.
Okay. But you will still end up with 2 poles. Mm-hmm. You can't ever have only the North Pole or only the South Pole or the magnet. You're always going to have both sides.
Yeah.
So the law of duality is that very thing of understanding that there's 2 sides. So it's really easy to see on a physical level. Mm-hmm. So you can see that it's night and day, it's tall and short, you've got things like hot and cold. But all these things they are basically extremes of the very same thing.
Okay.
So what becomes difficult is seeing it on more of a, like when we think one side is better than the other, and then we start making things wrong and right, and then it becomes difficult to see the law of duality at play until we ask these kind of questions. So what happens is, if you go on a date with someone who really does fulfill your priorities, you will be conscious of all the upsides that support all your priorities, and you'll be unconscious of the downsides.
Yeah.
The moment you go on a date with the Coke girl, I'm going to call her the Coke girl now, right? And we're talking about Coke, the drink.
Yes.
The Coke girl, you're gonna typically be conscious of all the downsides and unconscious of the upsides. So, for example, if I said to you, what was actually the other side? What did you find that was positive in this girl? What would you say?
So when you only focus on that one thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's all I could take away from it.
A lot, doesn't it? Yeah.
So what would you say about this girl that drank the Coke? Like, what was the upsides? What was the positive to her?
She made her own way back.
Okay. What else was there?
Conversation was probably. I mean, she didn't really leave a lasting impression. So
yeah,
there must have been some conversation. Would have been semi-decent, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't really remember. It was just I was focused on.
You just focused on.
We just have different values.
Yeah. So all that happens in that moment is you're focused more on the downsides and blind to the upsides. Mm-hmm. So what happens is the moment I ask you the other side is your subconscious sees the law of duality, because it actually sees that there is both sides to this person. So it'll always hold balance, but it's just your awareness that doesn't see it.
Okay.
So as I said, the law of duality is at play at every given level. We just got to ask the right question. So the same way when somebody experiences something negative, they're only going to be conscious of all the downsides and also unconscious of the upsides. And typically depression happens when we're more conscious of the downsides. And like I was describing myself, when you question and you get to suicide, when you question your life, like I did, you go more and more down that hole, seeing only downsides and never seeing the upsides. And you think that, life's just not worth living. That's an extreme of only seeing the downsides. Depression is something I deal with a lot, and just a perception change of getting them to see the other side. I've helped people get off medication that they've been on for years, and that kind of thing. And some people being on the verge of getting onto it. So it's a huge game changer in that way, that just by changing your perception, you can change your reality.
Awesome. That's huge.
So I hope that, I mean, ask me any questions. Like, does that explain really what?
No, that does. Yeah. I mean, the analogies you gave, like the magnet and stuff, and then going into the relationship. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, the magnet works so well. Like I consulted with an 8-year-old girl the other day, and you know, she was basically having a few girls at school that were kind of saying a few, you know, things negative to them. And when I just said to her, you know, let's think of the magnet, and she knew you can't get a one-sided magnet. So, and I said to her, so what would be the good in that? Because you have to kind of use some sort of moral language sometimes with kids for them to understand. And when I said, you know, when this person, like, you know, said some stuff to you about how you were doing the monkey bars, and she said, well, my friend came running from the other side of the playground, and she came and we spent the whole afternoon together and all this. And then she got to a really heart-opening moment when I just said, you know, what do you think about those girls that said those horrible things to you now? And she just said, feel really thankful. And you know, and that's what this is about. When you understand what the law of duality is at play, you get to a state of gratitude for what is, and in that moment you don't want it to be any different. So I said to her, if I have a magic wand and I could make that girl not do that to you, but that does mean that your friend doesn't play with you. And she was like, no, I like the fact that my friend was playing, you know. And she just said, now I've got to, and then I said, what did you take away from this call? And she just said, I'm going to look more for the magnet side of things. And, you know, that sticks with kids, you know. So it's very powerful to understand that.
Amazing. What are your tips for staying stable when dealing with the day-to-day stresses of running our own businesses or your own businesses? And Akash has put in here, why are we all drug dealers?
Well, do you want to explain why you've asked me that question? So...
Okay, so Manmeet was saying how, you know, we're all in charge of the emotion that we want to feel. In that, you know, there's the hypothalamus you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, the hypothalamus in our brain is what, you know, releases all the chemicals in your body, or a lot of them. And we're essentially the drug dealer because we can provide the prescription for the hypothalamus to produce the emotions that, you know, our body releases. So essentially, she was saying that, you know, we're all drug dealers because, you know, we provide the drugs for our body to feel.
Okay.
That's the analogy she gave.
Yeah,
which
and
I
then
thought
so
we just
call the hypothalamus is what you guys know it as, but like even if you simplified that more, I just call it the chemist.
Yeah. Okay.
So like the chemist needs a prescription, and you know, when we perceive something, we create a meaning behind it because we're all what I call meaning-making machines. And when we create a meaning, we'll typically create a good meaning or a bad meaning, and then we'll write a prescription relevant to whatever meaning we've made. And then we give that prescription to our chemist that actually then releases the good or bad chemicals into our body, which are the drugs, which then create the feelings. So this is quite key. And I mean, if your listeners get this, it'll be huge for them, is if you're writing the prescription and you're the drug dealer, then who's making you feel anything? Because the moment you're starting to say, so-and-so said this to me and they made me feel this way, you're almost giving your power over to someone else, which it's not true because you've written the prescription. You've decided how to feel. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So anytime you're thinking somebody, and similarly, you don't make anybody else feel a certain way, right? Because they're their own
their perception of it.
Yeah, they're their own doctor of their chemist, and you're your own doctor.
Do you think it takes a while to sort of like ingrain this thought process?
Oh yeah, it doesn't happen overnight.
It can't happen overnight, right? So
no, it doesn't happen overnight. Yeah, I mean, you have a shift, right? But it's a matter of how much you see it in practice. Like I know that the guys that did the workshop with me just gone, I met quite a few of them this afternoon, and they just said, we can't look at life the same way. Because that now has been like, they know that the universal laws are at play. They can't play victim anymore, but it's not to say they won't. And I said, it's not about getting rid of playing victim. It's just recognizing it and asking yourself, how long do you want to stay there? Because, you know, doing pity parties and doing stress does help. You know, as in there are benefits of doing that. Yeah. So you'll do it when you see there are more benefits than doing so. Like going back to the HILPs again, we don't lift a finger unless we see it's going to fulfill our HILPs. So if in the moment doing stress or doing depression fulfills your HILPs, you know, you're going to actually do that because you're going to say, okay, in this moment, it fulfills my HILPs because I get to avoid this or I get to do this. You know, I like to avoid cooking and stuff, right? So I'll just, you know, make excuses and things like that around my mom so she carries on doing the cooking rather than me doing it.
Sound like Adam.
Yeah, that's just like me. Anything that you want to add in, Akash?
I think she's
I
summed
think
up.
this has been perfect, hasn't it?
Oh gosh, I don't know about that.
No,
You asked me about how do your business owners kind of stay stable when they're dealing with the day-to-day life. So I mean, a lot of people kind of, as I said earlier, will like do stress, and there are two forms of stress. One is very necessary, and that's called eustress, and that's when you're living in alignment with your HILPs.
Okay.
So you need you know, a bit of challenge and support in order to fulfill that. But as Akash was saying earlier, is when he was doing a lot of things that weren't aligned with his priorities, he kind of went into burnout. Yeah. And what that is levels. So levels of distress will eventually go to burnout. So that's a different type of stress. That's distress, where you're living by your lower priorities, but eustress you need in everyday life, because that's going to help you actually get through the day because you're living by your highest priority. So you'll endure challenge, support, pain, and pleasure in doing so. I mean, sometimes we do things and we give up. We just got to ask ourselves, is it really aligned with our HILPs?
Okay, perfect. No, this has been really interesting.
And what's funny, but sorry, carry on with the burnout thing. When I reflected on when it happened, it was the month after we came back from the US. So it was mainly June. We had our busiest month ever that month. But because it was so busy, I was spending so much time processing admin, processing finances, and actually doing a lot of, you know, like client work and a lot of stuff that I wouldn't usually do as much of. And I was having to had less time to do what I actually wanted to do. Which is probably why it happened. Yeah. It was only because there was no time today to do what I actually wanted to do. Yeah. Because it was constantly
things you had to do.
And trying to manage a different thing I hadn't done before, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like absolutely. Yeah. And one of the key things I tell these guys at the workshop is, when you feel like your priorities are not being fulfilled, you will co-create the chaos needed to get back to doing it.
Yeah.
So if he needed the chaos of
spontaneous
burnout,
holiday for me.
Yeah, exactly. So if the burnout and everything was the chaos that was created for you, it was about going on holiday and getting back to exactly what was most important to you.
Yeah.
And that really is key in business relationships.
Sorry, was that?
Perfect timing then.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's there for business relationship, client relationships. If you're working with your clients and you feel like your clients, if the client feels like their priorities are not being met, they'll create chaos needed to get out of the relationship with you. And you'll do that the same with other like suppliers and things like that as well. And at the time we think, oh my God, like this is really bad. Why is this happening? But if we just take a step back and look at a very powerful question I ask people is why did I co-create such a situation for me? You know, how is it helping me fulfill my priorities? Because it takes off this is happening to me as to, you know, I'm co-creating
victim mentality goes, yeah.
Perfect. Joe, usually when we record these podcasts, obviously I just save them, Dropbox them, send it to our podcast manager and post it. I don't ever listen to it because I've listened to it live and I don't like hearing my own voice. But this will probably be one of the first podcasts that actually I'm going to, when it comes out, I'll stick this on and go for a walk and just kind of re-listen to it. So, you take it all in.
Awesome.
So, thank you for that. Thank you.
I'm really glad. I'm really glad to hear that. And I'm humbled that you're actually going to listen to it again. So
yeah, definitely. Where can people find out about you?
They can find out about me on Facebook. So I'm under Manmeet Chowdhry. There are Optimum Thinking pages on there, so they can go and like that, and we'll post things there. And also our website is www.optimumthinking.net. And they can find out about our events. We've just finalized actually this morning the next workshop, which is going to take place on the 6th and 7th of October. So that's the next workshop. And also
the next London workshop.
Yeah, next London one. Yeah. And we on LinkedIn, people can go and read like real life testimonials, because I like LinkedIn, the fact that people you can't edit anybody's testimonials, so it's there as well, just pure as to what people think.
Great, perfect. Let's finish with some rapid fire questions quickly.
Oh my gosh, okay. You didn't tell me about this one.
So we thought we'd keep this one quiet. So you do traveling with your work, and you travel quite extensively. What's your favorite city that you've taught in so far?
That I've taught in or that I've visited?
Let's go taught in.
Taught in, I'd say New Zealand, so Auckland.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And now the favorite that you visited?
The favorite I visited has to be, I'd say Brisbane. But before I'd been to Brisbane, it was South Africa. Johannesburg and Cape Town were both my favorites.
Oh,
Okay.
wow. Me either.
Yeah, they were brilliant.
Active city break or a chilled beach holiday?
Wow. This is really, really interesting, and I struggle with it because I feel like my the aim is making your vocation your vacation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I feel like I'm on holiday every time I'm teaching.
Perfect.
So for me, it's I'm on a beach holiday and I'm in a city break all at the same time for me. So
That's
if I have to really answer that honestly, I don't think I'd have to choose. It's just like, I don't think for me sitting on a beach is one of the things that I wouldn't feel fulfilled just doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not mine.
The last one would be who should we have on our podcast next?
Or John Demartini, of course.
Get us the introduction there.
I can get you the introduction for sure, and I can see if I can help make that happen for you. Just know when he uses values, he's talking HILPs.
Okay, good to know. And before we round it off, Akash, rapid fire for you. So give us 3 things that you took away from the workshop.
The concept of fulfillment was the biggest one. Dealing with, I think, the infatuation and loss. We didn't cover loss today, but it's similar to infatuation, right? Mm. That was a big one. And bringing everything back to balance. So if things are going too crazy in a good way, think about the downsides and vice versa. Those were the 3 big takeaways I took.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Do you want to finish it off?
Yeah. So to wrap it up, so if you enjoyed today's episode with Manmeet, please feel free to share with friends and family who you think will value Manmeet's expertise. Book onto a workshop because I think you can gain a lot of value from it, no matter who you are. And to follow more content from us, please visit www.rntfitness.co.uk. You can follow us on Instagram at rnt_fitness, at Akash Fagela, or at Adam Haley with the number 1 at the end. And for video content, please visit our YouTube channel. Just type in RNT Fitness. Thank you for listening.